You have heard it 100 times. Florida is over. The prices ran away, the snowbirds bought everything, and if you did not get in years ago, you missed your window for good. And I understand why you believe it, because the average home value in Florida today is around $378,000, and along the coast it is far higher than that. And I'm not talking about a rundown shack or a lot in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking about ordinary, livable homes in real towns with grocery stores and doctors and neighbors. So let me show you something that should not exist. This is a real Florida town where the typical home value, according to Zillow, is $160,269. Not a lot, not a fixer nobody wants. The typical home in an entire town, for a number that would not buy a parking space in Miami. And it is not the only one. Today, I am going to give you 6 real Florida towns where the typical home still sits under $200,000, every figure pulled straight from Zillow. And I am going to do the thing the other channels will not. For every single town, I'm going to tell you exactly why it is that cheap and the honest catch that comes with the price. Because cheap always has a reason, and you deserve to know the reason before you fall in love with the number. Here is how this works, and why you should trust it. Every price I give you is the Zillow typical home value for that specific town, not some cherry-picked listing designed to fool you. And this is not a doom video. This is the opposite. This is for the person who is choosing where to spend the best years of their life on a budget that is real, and who is tired of being told that person has no options left in Florida. And I verified every one of them myself against Zillow's town-level home values and Redfin's market data in the last few weeks, because a number this low is worthless to you if it is out of date or made up. These are real and they are current. You have options, 6 of them at least. But every one of them is a trade, and I'm going to lay out both sides of that trade. The reason it is affordable and the reason it stays affordable, so that you walk in with your eyes wide open. Let us count them down, from the most expensive of the 6 to the cheapest, because the number is only going to drop as we go. Number 6 is Marianna in Jackson County, up in the Florida Panhandle along Interstate 10. The Zillow typical home value here is around $198,700, which puts it right at the top of our list, just under the line. So why is it this cheap? Marianna is a genuine small town in the rural panhandle, hours from any big Florida city, in a part of the state that never caught the coastal price wave at all. It sits on Interstate 10, so it is connected with springs and caverns and real natural beauty around it, but it is firmly the interior, and the interior has always been the affordable Florida. Now the honest catch, and I will give you one every time. Marianna took a direct hit from Hurricane Michael in 2018, one of the most powerful storms ever to reach this region. And a small inland town recovers from something like that slowly, because there simply are not the people and the tax dollars to bounce back fast. So you are buying into a town that is still rebuilding in places, far from a major hospital, and you should price both of those realities in. But for a number under $200,000 on Interstate 10, with that kind of scenery, Redfin data shows homes across this part of the Panhandle sitting on the market far longer than the Florida average, which is not a knock, it is your leverage. Because a seller whose house has waited months is a seller who will actually negotiate with you. That is the quiet advantage of a slow market. The buyer for once holds the clock. Number 5 is Bristol in Liberty County, and this is the deep interior of Florida, the part almost nobody outside the state has ever seen. I have to be honest with you about the number here, because it is the one caveat on my data. Bristol is so small that clean town level figures are thin, so the value I am working from is closer to the county level, and Liberty County is one of the least populated counties in the entire state of Florida. The typical value here runs in the neighborhood of the high 180s, so still comfortably under our line. Why is it this cheap? Because this is as rural as Florida gets. Liberty County has no city of any real size, it is wrapped in national forest, and it is about as far from a coastline and a crowd as you can get in this state. The catch is exactly what you would expect. This is true isolation. The nearest full-service hospital is a serious drive. There is essentially no shopping to speak of, and the economy is thin. This one is not for most people, and I'm not going to pretend it is. But if your dream is genuine peace, land, and forest, with almost no neighbors and a rock-bottom cost of entry, and I want to be fair to Bristol, because rural is not the same as bad. The Apalachicola River runs right past it, the National Forest is your backyard, and the crime and noise and traffic that drive people out of the cities simply do not exist here. Liberty County has the smallest population of any county in Florida, and one of the smallest of any county in the entire eastern United States, which tells you exactly what you are getting and exactly what you are giving up. What you are really buying in a place like Bristol is subtraction, the removal of almost everything for almost nothing. For the right person, that is not a compromise. That is the whole point. Number 4 is Perry in Taylor County in the Big Bend where the panhandle curves down into the peninsula. Perry is a timber and mill town, and the market here is genuinely soft, with active listings clustered right around and below our $200,000 line and the broader town value sitting well beneath it. Why is it this cheap? And this one is painful, so I will be straight with you. Perry recently went through the hardest possible stretch a small town can face. Hurricane Idalia made landfall right near here as a major storm, and then just weeks later, the region's major mill announced it was closing, taking a large share of the town's jobs and tax base with it. When a town loses both its storm luck and its biggest employer in the same season, prices fall because more people need to sell than want to buy. That is the catch, stated plainly. You are buying into a town in a real economic transition, storm exposed, with a thin job market. But here is the other side, and it is the reason Perry is on a list about opportunity and not a list about warnings. For a retiree who does not need a local job, who arrives with a pension or Social Security already in hand, a town desperate for stable new residents will welcome you and welcome your money. Redfin and Zillow both show this corner of the Big Bend among the slowest and softest markets in the state right now. And in plain terms, that means a buyer with cash and patience can name terms here that would be laughed at anywhere near the coast. You can find a whole house in Perry for what a small condo deposit costs in a beach town. And there is a quiet dignity to a town like Perry that the price tag hides. These are working people who grew the timber and ran the mill and fed a big piece of North Florida for generations, and they are not looking for pity, they are looking for neighbors. A retiree who shows up ready to be part of the place, not just to buy cheap and complain, will find a genuine welcome here. The town needs you more than you need it, and in a purchase, that is always the side you want to be on. Before I give you the top 3, where the numbers get genuinely surprising, do me one quick favor. If a town on this list has already made you rethink what your budget can actually buy in Florida, tap the like button, because this is the video the algorithm never pushes, since hope does not go viral the way fear does, and your one tap puts real options in front of the next person who is told they missed their chance. Now let us get to the cheapest 3. Number 3 is Quincy in Gadsden County. And this one comes with a genuinely useful twist, because Quincy is not isolated at all. The typical home value here sits around $178,000. And Quincy is only about 25 minutes from downtown Tallahassee, the state capital. Think about what that means. You get a small historic town with some of the most beautiful old homes in North Florida at a price around 40% below the statewide norm, and you are still a short drive from a real city with universities, full hospitals, an airport, and jobs. Why is it this cheap then if it is so close to the capital? Because Gadsden County is a higher poverty county that has historically been passed over by buyers chasing Tallahassee's nicer suburbs, which left its prices low even as the capitals climbed. That gap is your opportunity. The honest catch is that you will want to look carefully at any individual home, because in an older, lower-income market, you must check the age of the roof and the systems, and in Florida, the roof is what your insurance company cares about most. Buy a solid house here, though, and you have pulled off something rare. And the numbers back the value up, because while Tallahassee's own home values sit well above the state average, Quincy sits far below it, for a drive most people would not think twice about making for a good doctor or a favorite restaurant. Redfin's data shows homes here moving at small town speed rather than capital city speed, which again means room to negotiate. And Quincy itself is worth seeing because it has one of the largest collections of historic homes of any small town in Florida. Grand old houses built generations ago when the shade tobacco money flowed through here. Some of those homes sell for a fraction of what a plain new build costs in a coastal suburb. You are essentially buying a Tallahassee lifestyle and paying a Gadsden County price, and that gap is the entire opportunity. Number 2 is Live Oak in Suwannee County, up in the rural north near the Georgia line, and the typical home value here is $163,501. This is old Florida, farm country, springs and rivers and open land, the Florida that existed long before the theme parks and the condo towers. Why is it this cheap? Because it is genuinely rural and genuinely remote, a farming county far from any big city, and this deep in the interior, land is still something an ordinary person can afford, which is why so many people up here own their home on an actual piece of property. The catch is the distance. Your advanced medical care is a real drive away toward Gainesville or Tallahassee, and this region sat right in the recent storm paths that crossed the Big Bend, so hurricane exposure is real, and you should insure for it. But if what you want is quiet, space, a garden, and a paid-off house on land you can walk, with a cost of entry most of America would not believe. And here is a detail city buyers always miss. In a market like Live Oak, a large share of what sells is not just a house, but a house on real acreage. So the price you are seeing often includes land that would cost a fortune anywhere near a coast. Redfin listings up here regularly pair a modest home with a genuine piece of property, which is why so many retirees who move to this part of Florida end up with a garden, a workshop, and room to breathe, for a number that would buy a starter condo down south. Stay with me for number 1, because it is not only the cheapest town on this entire list, it is the one quietly turning a corner. And that combination is the rarest thing in Florida real estate right now. And number 1, the most affordable town on this entire list is Palatka, on the St. Johns River in Putnam County, where the Zillow typical home value is $160,269. That is the number I showed you at the very start, and it is real. Palatka sits on a wide, beautiful bend of the St. Johns River, about an hour from Gainesville and its major hospitals, with a historic downtown and some of the best freshwater fishing in the state. Why is it this cheap? History, mostly. Palatka was once one of the busiest towns in Florida until the railroad boom passed it by more than a century ago, and it has been an affordable, overlooked river town ever since. But here is what makes Palatka the most interesting name on this list. Its values are not falling. According to Zillow, Palatka home values have actually climbed sharply over the past year, which tells you buyers are finally rediscovering it. The catch is real, and I will name it. Parts of Palatka sit in river flood zones, so flood insurance is a must, and you have to check any specific address, and it is a higher poverty area. So like Quincy, you inspect carefully and you buy the sound house, not the cheap gamble. But a rising river town, an hour from a major hospital, with a typical home value starting with a 1. And I do not say that lightly. Redfin shows a healthy number of homes actively for sale in Palatka, so you have real choice, not a bare shelf, and yet Zillow shows the values climbing, which is the exact combination a smart buyer looks for: selection today and momentum underneath it. When a town this cheap starts rising while it still has inventory, the window does not stay open forever. Palatka is the one on this list I would tell a friend to look at first. So those are the 6. But before I give you the single best reason these inland towns deserve a serious look and the honest bottom line on who this life is actually for, let me point you to something. If any of these towns is on your radar, I keep everything in one place. A single breakdown of 40 Florida towns, 20 that are genuinely worth buying into right now, and 20 worth staying well away from, each one with the specific reason and the real cost of ownership attached, including the flood, the insurance, and the healthcare distance we have been talking about. If you want to see which side of that line a town falls on before you ever make an offer, the link is waiting in the description. But stay right here, because there is one advantage these cheap inland towns share that nobody in this corner of the internet ever tells you about, and it might be the most valuable thing in this whole video. Here it is. These inland North Florida towns do not just have the lowest home prices in the state. Many of them also have the lowest home insurance in the state, and that is a much bigger deal than the sticker price. You already know that insurance is the thing quietly crushing Florida homeowners, with coastal premiums running many thousands of dollars a year. But the reason coastal insurance is so brutal is hurricane wind risk, and that risk drops sharply the farther you get from open saltwater. These towns are 60, 70, 80 miles inland. So in a county like the ones on this list, the average homeowner's premium can run a fraction of what a coastal owner pays. In some inland areas, closer to $1,000 a year than the $10,000 or $15,000 you hear about on the coast. Think about what that does to your real monthly cost. A cheaper house with a dramatically cheaper insurance bill stacked on top is not just cheaper once. It is cheaper every single month for as long as you own it. That is the hidden math that makes these towns even more affordable than the price tag alone suggests. And let me put it in the bluntest possible terms, because it is the number that changes everything. A retiree who buys a modest home in one of these inland towns can end up paying less for their home and their insurance combined than a coastal buyer pays in insurance alone. Read that again. The whole inland package, the mortgage and the coverage together, can undercut just the insurance bill on the water. That is not a small edge, and this is the exact fact the doom channels leave out, because it does not fit their story. They show you the $15,000 coastal premium and let you assume all of Florida is like that. It is not. Inland Florida is quietly one of the more affordable places in the country to insure a home, because the hurricane wind that terrifies the coast loses most of its force 60 and 70 miles in. The distance that costs you a beach view is the same distance that saves you a fortune in premiums. Now let me give you the honest bottom line, because you have trusted me this far and you have earned it. Every one of these 6 towns is a genuine trade, and the trade is always the same shape. You are giving up something for that price. You are giving up the beach because all of these are inland. You are giving up being close to a major hospital because most of these put advanced care 30 minutes to over an hour away. And at a certain age, that distance matters more than any price. And you are accepting more storm exposure or a higher poverty county or a thinner local economy, depending on which town you choose. That is the deal. Nobody is giving away cheap Florida for free, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you something. But if you are healthy enough that a hospital drive does not frighten you, if you would trade a crowded coast for a quiet river or a piece of land, and if a paid-off house on a modest budget means more to you than a zip code that impresses strangers. Let me be even more specific about who each end of this list is for, because it matters. If your health is strong and your spirit is independent, and you want land, quiet, and the lowest possible cost of living, the deep rural names Bristol and Live Oak are your towns. If you still want a real city within reach for the hospital, the airport, the grandchildren flying in, then Quincy near Tallahassee and Palatka near Gainesville are the smarter picks, because they pair the low price with genuine access. And if you want a connected panhandle base with room to grow, Marianna on Interstate 10 fits. There is a version of this list for almost every kind of retiree, as long as you are honest with yourself about which one you actually are. And if you go looking, do it the smart way. First, get a real insurance quote, and where it applies, a flood quote on the exact address before you sign, not after. Because in Florida, those two numbers decide whether a cheap house is actually cheap. Second, in these older markets, pay for a proper inspection and look hard at the age of the roof, because the roof is what your insurer judges first. Third, if you can, rent in the town for a season first and live through one Florida summer, because the place that charms you in January is a different animal in August. Do those 3 things, and a cheap Florida town becomes a smart decision instead of a gamble. And do not let anyone convince you Florida is closed to you, because it is not true. The Florida that is closed is the coastal bidding war Florida. The other Florida, the river towns and the farm country, is still right here, still affordable, and still waiting. Now, I genuinely want to hear from you, because on these videos, the comments are the best part. If you already live in one of these towns, or one just like it, tell everyone the truth in the comments, the good and the bad, because a real voice from the ground helps the next person more than any list I can make. And if you have a town under $200,000 that I did not name, drop it below with the price, because I know there are more out there and I want to hear which one is yours. And if this gave you a little hope instead of the usual fear, hit the like button and subscribe, because I make these for the people every other channel wrote off, the ones on a real budget who still deserve a good place to call home. Next, I am naming the Florida towns with the lowest total cost of ownership in the state. Not just the cheapest to buy, but the cheapest to keep once insurance and taxes are counted. So stay with this channel, because on a fixed income, the price on the sign is only the beginning, and almost nobody will tell you the rest.